very simple questions at the end of the day, but you need to have like some third party telling you or some external source asking these questions. Basically, we got some money, we built something and nobody needed it.
Hey everybody, welcome to this newest episode of This Is Fine, the only show on the internet where we bring together nerds of all stripes to talk about the biggest mistakes of their careers and to tell us what they learned along the way. So today we have Orell to join us on the show. So thank you, Orell, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, David. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to talk a little bit more about some of the biggest mistakes that you've made in your career and what you've learned from them. So thank you for being so courageous and being able to share that.
I'm very happy to talk about that. I did learn a lot from that, and I hope others can as well. I'm not sure how big the mistake was in like the grand scheme of things, but it certainly helped me figure out a lot of things, which is also quite helpful for my like consultancy now.
Well, I think even small mistakes in the relative grand scheme of things can be very insightful to let us learn how to get better at our jobs. So I'm excited to learn more and hear what you have to say on that. For everybody else's context, my name is David Cohen. I am the founder of Superposition, which is a consultancy for other data and AI consultancies where we navigate many of the challenges of scaling and growing a boutique consulting shop, much like the work that Orell and I both do. And obviously talk about many of the challenges of growing that firm as well as learning from our mistakes. So if you want to learn more about what we do, I'll share some links at the end. But Orell, let's start with introduce yourself. I'll share my screen so people can see it or start to see the story that you're telling. But please tell us about who you are, what you do, and then let's start to get into your story if that works for you.
Yeah, perfect. Works for me. So my name is Orell. I'm a data consultant. I help my clients kind of to figure out what to do with their data to answer business questions. And before that, I had a background in software engineering, electrical engineering, and I also tried to start a startup, which is kind of the setting for the story for my basically mistake here.
So let's summarize it for me by giving it a title to begin with. So this is the story of the time you blank.
The time I developed a product only to find out that the market doesn't need it.
Okay, so I'm going to say, just to shorten it down, I'm going to say developed a product the market didn't need.
Yeah, that works well.
I could spell. All right, so then let's talk about it. What I want you to do is in the area that you have below to input as much context as you can for that story. So you're welcome to, as you're talking along, to drop any pictures, to drop any references for whatever you're describing. And obviously I'll ask you a follow-up question or a couple of follow-up questions as we're going along. So otherwise, floor is yours. So go ahead.
Thank you. So the first picture I have is this one. Okay, this is very small. Let's make it a bit bigger. This is basically the product we developed. We had a simulator for medical data, let's say an X-ray, as you can see here. And it was model driven, like in a sense that it was like a 3D model, not an AI model. So we had like perfect annotation and perfect data about what's in the model, what's in the picture. So you had basically perfect ground truth. And our idea was, and this was way before ChatGPT, and so the whole Gen AI thing was to help medical AI teams to basically get their applications running by providing them with training data for things that they couldn't get from hospitals, because like medical data, as you know, is in most countries quite regulated. You can't just use it for commercial purposes and all kinds of stuff. And we figured this has to be something people have to be using. And we had a background in simulation and technology, so we kind of were like all excited about the technology. We got a couple of letter of interests. So I probably put some text here to, this is like super small.
No, I can make it better.
Okay, thank you. Letter of interests from some companies, but we knew people in these companies, so the letter of interests were also kind of like something they did to provide us with some credibility for funding opportunities and that kind of stuff, which we didn't realize at that point of time. However, we did get some funding through a government grant for startups. So we had to like write a whole essay basically saying what we wanted to do, why we were the right people to do it, and that kind of stuff. And got some funding, which allowed us to work for 1 year on the problem basically, and making it to a point in time where we could commercialize the product. So for everyone who's been through it already, like they know this is like the completely wrong way around. You don't start with technology, you kind of start with the problem, with the customer, the market, and kind of like understand the pain that you actually need to solve, instead of relying on some kind of technology where you say, okay, we have like this super cool tech and now we think of something that we could apply this to, because that's just, it lends itself to you being kind of not thinking of something that's actually a problem, but something that you think of as a problem, which usually isn't a problem like for your actual customers. And we actually talked to like one of the big companies in medical, like engineering, medical AI, and they told us that if we had a model of a collapsed lung, for example, because this was like right after COVID, they would have like taken the data like very, very quickly. But it is like one very specific part of the body and one very specific illness or sickness. And this is like a lottery win, basically, if you just have the right data at the right time, because you have to model all these different like anatomy parts of your body, the different ways an illness can like manifest themselves and stuff like that, which is a lot of engineering work, which we didn't realize in the beginning as well. And we thought, okay, we can have like some base version and then model like on top of that, but it doesn't work like that. And also the market, like the medical market, is not a win-win market, because basically the funding structure is in a way that there's a certain budget for the year. And if they spend it on one thing, they can spend it on another thing. And if they spend it on you, you're basically taking money away from someone else, because they will, it's just kind of limited by how much people pay for their insurance, basically. That's how the medical market, at least in most of Europe, works. And that's just not a great market to be a startup in, because it's the money is limited, very limited anyway, and they don't spend it on things that they think, okay, this could be something of interest, maybe if everything works out and the stars align, kind of thing. So the major problem was just we didn't talk to enough customers or potential customers, to enough people that understood the market, how it worked, before doing any development at all. And then also the question is this, well, like the picture is basically the proof of concept, but it's not an MVP. So we couldn't really like validate any hypotheses that we had with the pictures that we generated. This is more or less just a showcase for getting some funding.
So I guess the one dynamic that I would also love to get into is that you weren't alone when you developed this, right? Like you had co-founders, correct?
Yeah, we were two people, but we had like the same background, which can work, I think, but it's not necessarily ideal, because like you kind of reinforce what you think, because you kind of think in the same way, same background, kind of like similar experiences. So it's not the best way.
Yeah, so you basically answered what I was going to ask, which is that I think that you probably had significant overlap in your skill sets that led to this happening in the first place, correct?
Yes, it's exactly as you said. We missed the person kind of keeping us in check, and also kind of bringing us back down to earth on certain like things. We kind of like, okay, this is like a cool thing, all the hype, and then somebody has to tell you, okay, are you sure? Did you validate? who has told you this? Where did you learn this? These kind of questions. They're very simple questions at the end of the day, but you need to have like some third party telling you, or some external source asking these questions.
So I guess any other pictures that you want to add to the board? Anything else from a visual aid perspective?
No, I don't have any more pictures from that time. But it's basically, we got some money. We built something and nobody needed it.
So I guess what was the point at which you realized that there was no more path for this idea, right? So like, what was that like? How did you reach it? You mentioned you had a heart-to-heart or like a tough conversation with an advisor about it, or perhaps like somebody that just gave you their thoughts. What was that like?
So we had some external advisors through the basically startup network. They did ask a few, let's say, tough questions, but they also had no real experience building startups on their own. So I don't think they were in the best position to like help teams build startups. So we also maybe invalidated some of the advice just through that they don't have any experience, basically. But what we, like when we figured out that this isn't going to work, is when we actually used the product, the showcase kind of thing, to talk to potential customers. And they were all like, oh, nice. But nobody was willing to like put any engineering people like to talk to us or have them try it or something like that. So we were like, okay, they all think it's nice, which is, it feels good when people tell you it's nice, but it's worth nothing because people like try to be nice to each other generally. What you actually need is someone telling you, okay, this doesn't work because of whatever reason. And the reason here is it's very specific, it's very niche, and a lot of the medical engineering market also works like basically engineering agency, where the hospital comes to them, they tell them we want an MRI with these features, and they start building it, kind of thing. And it's, even though they have like some product lines, but it's all custom engineering at the end of the day.
So what was the moment where you realized that this idea had no more legs to it? So what was the moment where like essentially you went, this is it, we have to call it quits on this?
After maybe 5 customer calls, and then we had like, okay, nobody's going to pay, even for like some small pilot. The stress kept building up with no success in the foreseeable future. It also, like, small differences in your team become more relevant because when you do have wins, you tend to kind of like be in a better mood. You let things go more easily, but the less success you have, the more relevant small things become, the more they add up. And I think then we just reached a breaking point as a team, but also from like the product perspective as well. So there were like many reasons to call it quits at the end of the day.
Well, and I think you brought up a very important point, especially for people watching that may be pursuing a venture with a co-founder or with a team, is that the work to build anything really is just as much personal as it is about the work itself, and that there are many, it's like being in any other relationship, right? There are many other things that contribute to that and make it difficult along the path beyond just doing the work, which I think is what you experienced.
Yes. Sometimes you have to have like some tough conversations, and all of your co-founders, your founding team kind of has to be open to these conversations without taking it personal. It's not personal. It's always about like making the product or the company better and kind of provide value to the potential or to the customers if you have any. And you also have to, I think you need to be aligned in many ways, and like your kind of like technical and business side of things, but also what do you want to do with the company? What's the direction you're heading towards? Is it something you want to own till you die? Do you want to have an exit of some kind? Is this more like a lifestyle business, or do you want to make millions of dollars? This is just something you have to talk about, and as soon as there's some misalignment in these questions, you'll run into trouble sooner or later.
So when you finally reached the point of calling it quits, what was the decision to go in a different direction? What did you do with what you had built? How did you decide to go about the process of wrapping everything up, essentially?
It was kind of like short and painless. We just kind of said, okay, we're gonna stop it. Before everything, we tried to kind of say, okay, if anyone wants it, we kind of put it on GitHub. I don't think it's usable anymore. Not even sure what the repository is, if it's still up there. But we kind of like put it out there, and we're like, okay, if you want to use it or I want to use it, kind of just use it for whatever you want to. And didn't make a fuss out of it. Like it wasn't very useful at the end of the day. So it was like, okay, there's no value in it anyway. So this was very short and not very bureaucratic or anything. No real trouble dissolving anything.
Well, I'm glad, because when companies break up, and especially when founders stop working together, it can be somewhat messy. So it sounds like in your case that you were able to stop working together under good terms, and that you and your co-founder or former co-founder are still under good terms, personally speaking, at least.
Yeah, I think we both, or I was certainly at the point where I was like, okay, I just don't feel it anymore. And it's like, I'm just done with it, kind of. And I don't want to, whatever comes out of it, like the whole, if he makes it successful, like good for him, but I don't feel anything from the whole thing anymore. I don't want any part of this kind of thing. That was like my mindset at that point in time.
Well, and I think that's very healthy, is that any of us, whether, we are now in the services space, but whether you are in product or services or anything, like when you're building a startup from the ground up, there is a significant amount of it that is emotionally oriented. So like your momentum and your energy is very much tied to your ability to continue the idea forward. And when that leaves, I don't think there's any going back. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you need to have some kind of vision, how small or big it might be, to where you want it to be in a year or so. And if you don't have that anymore, at least for me, my heart isn't in it anymore. So I'm very likely to get burned out at some point. And it's better to quit early than kind of develop it into something that you don't want it to be, and maybe resent the time in your life as well.
I think resentment is the right word, right? Like you want to be able to look back to that time as a positive experience, even if the end result wasn't what you expected. It's all part of the development of a career to try things like this and see what works and see what doesn't. So I think you have probably the healthier approach to that sort of situation.
Yeah, and like looking back, I did learn a lot of things that I'm like still applying to this day. It helped me gain this whole business perspective that I didn't have before. I was all about technology, and it doesn't work like that in the real world, basically.
So that's actually a great segue to the next part, which is I want to talk about what you learned from this experience. So you'll notice I moved some letters to the right side. So let's talk about the first piece. What was the biggest lesson that you picked up from the experience trying to start up the company, especially as it relates to what you do now? So feel free to type it in the box that I just typed in, or let me know and I'll type it in for you.
I keep moving the background instead of my point of view. Okay, let's see. I learned focus on problems first before building anything.
And I think that this is a particular problem that's very endemic to consultants as well, in that as technical folks, so people that work in the data space or the AI space, we tend to focus very much on the things that we do and that we build and the skills that we have, and not so much on the problems that our clients have. So I think this is very, very relevant to the work that you do now, but curious to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, I agree. I see the whole AI technology. It's always like, let's do AI is kind of like the motto of many companies now. And it's like the C-level says, okay, let's do AI, and nobody kind of knows what to do with it. What do they even want to achieve? What's the point? And before that, we were all like, okay, let's focus on the problems. And now we just focus on doing AI. And what I usually do is I just kind of try to figure out what the underlying problem is that they want to solve, why they think they need AI. And quite often they just want to have like some, usually even small kind of automation within their systems. Moving data automatically from one system to another is kind of something they might have not been able to do before, but now they think, okay, let's do AI. Realistically, many companies are also not equipped to do any AI because they don't have any data structured data foundation in place, where they actually could use AI to make something happen in a valuable way. I mean, sure, you can have some internal chatbot or something, but does it help anyone? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, it's always asking more questions, kind of coming all the way down to the underlying problems, and then kind of first principle going back up again to solve the problem in the basically easiest way possible.
Okay, awesome. So that's what you learned. How, if you scroll down a little bit, how did that make you a better consultant as far as your job goes today?
It helps me, or it made me better in terms of focusing on the client more than basically I wanting to build something cool or me using a specific technology. So the focus on the client's challenges and problems, it's kind of the same as what I learned, to be honest, because that's like such a central learning. And I'm always trying to think without technology in mind first and kind of see what the system should look like in a like business sense.
Awesome. So the last question, just to close it out, is based on that learning. So if the learning is to help clients focus on their problems instead, what do you do now to activate that or to bring that into reality? So what did you change behavior-wise or action-wise?
I talk to my customers much more than what I used to do, like with the startup. It's always talking in the beginning. Usually followed up by some quick MVP style implementation, just to understand if like what I'm having in mind is actually helping them kind of solve their problems, which is usually also quite helpful because you can like it helps you engage with your customers even more. It starts the conversation. It helps them to understand what's possible, what's not possible, or how easy things can be possible. And once like they get this initial spark for their fantasy, it also helps communication within the project better. You kind of learn their words, they learn yours, and then they are usually the ones knowing the use case or what their problems are, and I'm just the one trying to help them solve it. And that's just communication at the end of the day. I think a lot of what we as consultants do is just kind of setting up communication. And then for me, at least, the technical implementation is usually the least interesting one in terms of, okay, how exciting it is.
No, I think that's a very underappreciated aspect of our work. And I think anybody that's been in consulting for any amount of time that's, larger than normal will tell you that what you're saying is very true. From any technical context, the human side of our work is significantly more time consuming and more important than the technical piece, which can be learned and can be taught very easily. And most importantly, from our client's perspective, doing the technical work is never the hard part. The hard part is making sure that we can enable change in a sustainable way. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And what we also sometimes forget is that, especially with the whole data work, it also has an impact on many people within the organization, because it's usually changing processes and kind of the way people work. At least that's usually the goal, and in midterm future, let's put it that way. So that's also something you have to be aware of. Yeah.
No, for sure. So then, that's actually it for the story. Any final closing thoughts, any messages that you want to leave the audience with?
Ask questions. That's always a good thing, I think. Just ask questions about the problem, try to understand, and just peel off the layers.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very applicable question to basically every context in both work and life. So really, really important point to make and to bring to the audience. And thank you for coming on the show to share it, Orell. Obviously, it takes a lot of courage to admit why, in retrospect, certain things failed as you pursued this idea, but really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me share my story. It was fun being here, and yeah, it was very nice. Thank you.
Of course, happy to. And then for everybody else in the audience, as a reminder, if you want to learn more about the work that we do at Superposition to help other consultancies navigate either the similar problems to the ones that Orell is explaining in finding, let's call it service to market fit, as well as understanding your market's positioning, go-to-market strategy, as well as doing anything relative to how a consultancy grows. So anything from pricing work to even developing new offerings or breaking into new markets, as well as using many of the workshop frameworks that we showcased in this video to sell to your own clients. Please reach out either YouTube or LinkedIn, where we post a lot of this content, and get in touch with us so we can chat more in detail. But otherwise, make sure that you like and subscribe this video so that you can get further or new stories from other participants in this show, and learn from the stories and mistakes that they've made in their career. Otherwise, we will see you next time, and thank you for joining us. So join us again soon. Thank you, everybody.